This is the lasting image from the 2007 NFL season. And oh man, it was incredible. But so was everything that came before it. 2007 was an all-time great NFL season, and I'm here to remind you of all the cool shit that happened that football year in an epic tale as we go balls deep into 2007. Yes, we can. That's good sports. The 2007 season opened up how it always should, with the defending champion Indianapolis Colts hosting the New Orleans Saints, who were the feel-good story of the 2006 season. I wonder if these two teams would ever meet in the Super Bowl. Now, the Saints did not live up to the promise of the 06 season, finishing just 7-9 after an 0-4 start. The Colts, on the other hand, won 13 games despite getting just 5 games out of Hall of Fame receiver Marvin Harrison. It's shocking, but the Colts actually finished with the best scoring defense in 2007, thanks in part to Defensive Player of the Year Bob Sanders, whose career turned out to be a massive what-if due to injuries. Now, Sanders finished first in Defensive Player of the Year voting, 3 spots ahead of Chargers cornerback Antonio Cromartie, who was lights out in 2007. Cromartie picked off a league-high 10 passes, which is still 4 fewer than the number of kids he has.
I have Karras, who was 3.
Cromartie had 3 picks in one half against Peyton Manning in a Week 10 game on Sunday Night Football. The Chargers actually picked Manning 6 times in this game, and the Colts still had a chance to win it. Surely, Adam Vinatieri, the most clutch kicker of all time, will make this 29-yard field goal. No, he does not. This was a huge win for the Bolts, who won 10 of 12 after starting 1-3. And those 3 picks in one half may not have even been the most impressive thing Antonio Cromartie did all year. It's hard to beat scoring the longest touchdown in NFL history, which Cromartie did a week earlier against the Vikings, 109.88 yards. Surely this was the coolest thing to happen in this game, right? Not quite. You might remember this game for another record. The part where rookie running back Adrian Peterson carried the ball 30 times for 296 yards, breaking the single game record, which was previously 295 by Jamal Lewis, set in 2003. This game basically clinched Offensive Rookie of the Year for Adrian Peterson, who beat out some familiar faces like Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson and future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas, who actually got 3.5 votes as an offensive lineman. Thomas got some votes probably because he was a big reason the Browns shocked everyone and finished 10-6 that season with Derek Anderson at quarterback. But in typical Browns fashion, they still missed the playoffs when the Colts laid down to the Titans in Week 17. Still, Thomas solidified his status as an elite tackle from day one of an 11-year NFL career, before he retired to pursue his childhood dream of blocking for Michael Phelps.
I needed something that had no impact on my joints.
First overall draft pick Jamarcus Russell sadly did not receive any votes. The Raiders passed on Calvin Johnson, Joe Thomas, Patrick Willis, Marshawn Lynch, Darrelle Revis, and of course, fantasy stud Adrian Peterson. Somebody say fantasy? I'm excited about my sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. If you haven't played fantasy football with Underdog, you are missing out. I'll be posting more links on Twitter so you can keep drafting against me. We've done a couple already. And I'm going to go nuts with their Best Ball Mania 3 tournament. All summer long, you can draft fantasy teams in 12-person leagues. Once you draft, you're done because Underdog Fantasy automatically uses the best performing players from your team to tally your score every week of the season. There's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management, and no worrying about leaving your highest scorers on the bench. You draft it and you forget it. And the person who won the Best Ball Mania tournament last year selected their team in June. My advice is to draft as many teams as you can afford for a chance to win massive prizes, with $10 million in total prize money right now and $2 million going to the first place winner. Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100 when you sign up with my code THAT'SGOOD. My link is in the description. Click that or download the app and use code THAT'SGOOD to enter the Best Ball Mania 3 tournament today. Now, between Adrian Peterson and his running mate Chester Taylor, the Vikings were dominant on the ground in 07, but only finished 8-8, probably because they couldn't throw or catch the football.
It took everything in me not to flip them the bird, but...
The class of the NFC North was in Green Bay. We didn't know it at the time, but this was Brett Favre's final year as a Packer. It was also Mike McCarthy's first as head coach, and he managed to get to vintage season out of the old gunslinger. In week 4 against the Vikings, Favre broke Dan Marino's all-time touchdown record, throwing number 421 to a second-year wideout, Greg Jennings. His 15 picks would also give him 288 career interceptions, putting him first all-time in that category with 3 years left on his resume. In week 8, Favre and Jennings also did this to the Broncos on the first play of overtime. Now, the Broncos might have been better in 07, but they didn't really play defense, and Jay Cutler played most of the season undiagnosed with diabetes. Many have asked, was it type 1 or type 2? Cutler's response was, I don't really give a shit.
Yeah, so you want me to show you how I felt before I had diabetes? I'm just right here. I'm right here. After diabetes, exact same way.
Shotgun, Cutler throwing out his end zone, picked off, touchdown!
The Broncos had a tough stretch against the NFC North in 2007, getting crushed by the Detroit Lions and losing a heartbreaker to the Chicago Bears, all because they broke the number 1 rule of the 2007 season. Don't kick it to Devin Hester. You would think you'd learn after the first touchdown, but they didn't. Hester took 2 to the house against the Broncos. This was 2 of his 6 return touchdowns in 2007, breaking the previous record of 5, which was also held by Devin Hester from the year before. Those were Hester's first 2 years in the league. 11 total touchdowns, 2 All-Pro team honors, and some of the greatest return work you'll ever see. Even with another record-setting year from Devin Hester, the Bears were unable to make the playoffs just a year after they advanced to the Super Bowl. Chicago lost its 8th game of the year in Week 14 to Washington, who was just 5-7 at the time. Less than 2 weeks earlier, Washington was struck with an unthinkable tragedy when their 24-year-old Pro Bowl safety, Sean Taylor, was shot and killed in a home invasion. It was tragic news that rocked the NFL world. And after losing in an emotional game against the Bills that week, the Skins reeled off 4 straight wins with backup quarterback Todd Collins, who hadn't started a game since the 1997 season and stole a wildcard spot in the NFC. Dan Snyder's porta potty tribute to Taylor 14 seasons later should be wiped clean like the asshole Dan is, and we can all remember what Collins and that team did to honor Sean Taylor. Washington did get some luck in Week 17 when they faced the 13-2 Dallas Cowboys, who had already wrapped up the NFC East and rested most of their starters, including quarterback Tony Romo. Following an embarrassing playoff snafu, Romo was stellar in 2007, throwing 36 touchdowns, including 15 to Terrell Owens. The NFC East was a lot better in 07 than it is today. 3 teams made the playoffs, and all 4 teams finished at 500 or better, even though the Eagles looked like some horrific version of the Chargers in these uniforms. In fact, they look like the one child even Phillip Rivers couldn't love. The Philadelphia Eagles managed to put up 42 points in 1/2 against the Lions in Week 3. Brian Westbrook had 110 rushing yards and 111 receiving yards in that game with 3 TDs, earning him the nickname Scar because of the way he murdered Lions. That was Westbrook's finest season, totaling over 2,000 yards from scrimmage and 13 tugs. The only other division as good as the NFC East was the AFC South, which also featured 3 playoff teams. The Texans found their quarterback in Matt Schaub. The Jaguars found their guy in David Garrard, aided by the duo of Fred Taylor and MJD, and the Titans won 10 games with Madden cover boy Vince Young at quarterback, who won 9 games as a starter, throwing just 9 touchdowns.
Did you know towels or a bunch of little towels stitched together? It's true, look closer. Towels.
The other Southern Division, not quite as good. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers managed 9 wins and a division title led by John, I'm still freely sending emails, Gruden, and quarterback 37-year-old Jeff, I hope a woman isn't critiquing my play, Garcia, whose favorite target was also 37-year-old wide receiver Joey Galloway. Age 37 is nothing compared to Vinny Testaverde, who was 44 years old when he started and won a game for the Panthers, despite having begun his career during the Reagan administration. And just months after Michael Vick was suspended and eventually imprisoned for dogfighting, the Falcons became one of the worst teams in football. New head coach Bobby Petrino took over for Jim Mora Jr., lost 10 of his first 13 games, and quit. But he didn't just quit. He left a note in the locker room, took off in the middle of the night, and became the head coach at Arkansas within 24 hours. It was one of the most fucked up head coaching tenures in NFL history until Urban Meyer may have relieved Petrino of that honor. Now the Falcons, the Jets, the Chiefs, and the Raiders all finished 4-12 in 2007. The Raiders would have won a 5th game, but Mike Shanahan introduced the world to the last-second timeout in Week 2. AKA icing the kicker, a game I was at, by the way.
Broncos country, let's ride.
The only teams worse were the 3-13 St. Louis Rams and the 1-15 Miami Dolphins. Miami was on a collision course for 0-16 before they walked it off in overtime against the Ravens, a game that pretty much ended the Brian Billick era in Baltimore. All right, you may have been waiting to hear about 2 teams. Let's start with the G-Men. In 07, they were a pretty run-of-the-mill team aside from one crazy stat. They were 7-1 on the road and just 3-5 at home. But that last home loss was actually the greatest moral victory of all time. In Week 17, the Giants hosted the 15-0 New England Patriots. Anyone remember anything specific about the 07 Pats? In the offseason, New England added 3 receivers, Dante Stallworth, a small white guy named Wes Welker, and Hall of Famer Randy Moss, who they got for a 4th-round pick on draft day from the Raiders. In his first game with the Patriots, Moss torched the New York Jets for 183 yards and a touchdown in a 38-14 win. That game really pissed off Jets head coach Eric Mangini, who decided to go nuclear against his former team, tipping off the NFL about a little thing called Spygate. My second favorite gate behind only Stargate. The Patriots were caught filming other teams during their walkthroughs, allegedly stealing their signals, which helped them figure out what plays their opponents were going to run before they ran them. This is also known as cheating. Cheating. The Pats were pissed and decided to go scorched earth on the rest of the NFL. The Patriots ended the season with a plus 315-point differential, the largest in NFL history. It included blowouts like a 52-7 victory over the Skins, a 55-10 beating of the Bills, a 49-28 win over the Cowboys. Their biggest challenge may have been a 4-point win over the Colts in a game that was dubbed Super Bowl 41.5. Tom Brady and Randy Moss were unstoppable. Heading into that Week 17 showdown with the Giants, they had connected for 21 touchdowns. And then this happened.
Going back again to Moss. Touchdown Patriots.
That was Tom Brady's 50th touchdown pass, a record at the time, since tied by Patrick Mahomes and shattered by Peyton Manning. And that was Moss's 23rd touchdown reception, another record, but one that still stands. The Patriots pulled ahead to finish the 2007 season with an undefeated 16-0 record, something that hadn't been done since 1972 via the Don Shula-led Dolphins. But in a close game, the Giants proved they could hang with the best team in the NFL. The 07 playoffs included some iconic moments. In the wildcard round, the Seahawks scored 22 points in the last 6 minutes to complete a comeback against Washington. 20 of those points were totally unnecessary though. Down 1 point in the last 2 minutes, facing 4th and 2, David Garrard broke the Steelers' back with a QB draw that finished off a Jags upset in Pittsburgh. The Jaguars shocking the Steelers in the postseason. I can confidently say that won't ever happen again.
It's over. The Jacksonville Jaguars have pulled off the upset of the playoffs.
Brett Favre beat the Seahawks in a snowstorm, converting a huge 3rd down in vintage Brett Favre fashion. Regular season MVP Tom Brady completed 26 of his 28 passes in an 11-point victory over the Jags. No way the Jaguars could ever beat the Steelers in the playoffs, only to lose to the Patriots the following week twice.
And by the way, Miles Jack was never touched. They should not have blown the whistle. He should have been able to run for a touchdown.
And after a Phillip Rivers injury, Billy Volek stepped in and led the Chargers to a shocking upset over the Colts in the last game ever played at the RCA Dome. A postseason loss, adding to the narrative Peyton Manning was only an elite regular season QB. Amani Toomer made the entire Cowboys defense miss, and R.W. McQuarters, who sounds like a special coin you can only use at McDonald's, picked off Tony Romo with seconds remaining as the Giants continued to roll on the road. Terrell Owens still had Romo's back though.
It's my team. It's my quarterback.
Phillip Rivers, defying doctor's orders, defying human anatomy, played through a torn ACL. Essentially, his knee pulled from his endless supply of highly potent semen to create a temporary ACL to put up a respectable fight against the Pats, but New England advanced to 18-0 and clinched a spot in Super Bowl 42. Later that night, the Giants traveled to freezing Lambeau Field, where Tom Coughlin's face became literal red skin. The real reason Washington had to change their name. The Packers took the lead early on a 90-yard touchdown to Donald Driver. But the Giants countered with a pair of touchdown runs and were able to push the game to overtime, nearly winning it at the end of regulation. Green Bay got the ball first in OT, then this happened.
Favre looking for Driver and it's picked off. Intercepted by Webster.
Favre interception? You gotta be kidding me. This was the last of Brett Favre's roughly 102,000 passes as a Packer. 3 plays later, Lawrence Tynes drills a 47-yarder to send the underdog Giants to Glendale, Arizona, where they would meet up once again with the undefeated Patriots, this time in Super Bowl 42. Remember that insane Patriots point differential? Well, the New York Giants and their defense led by Michael Strahan held them to just 14 points, taking us to where this video started. The Giants needed a touchdown, but were stuck with a 3rd and 5 on their side of the field. Of course, even before David Tyree made the greatest catch in Super Bowl history, the Giants had already exceeded expectations just by hanging with the Pats in the big game. New York entered the Super Bowl as 13-point dogs, but their incredible pass rush kept them in the game and even had them leading until a Randy Moss touchdown put the Patriots on top with under 3 minutes in the 4th quarter. But then, the legend of Eli Manning was born. Eli Manning shouldn't have even gotten a pass off on this play. He should have been sacked, but he made the most athletic play he or any of his brothers have ever performed and bought enough time to chuck up a prayer deep to the middle of the field. David Tyree, a former 6th-round pick who had lost his mother just 2 months earlier, pinned the ball to his helmet, even with Rodney Harrison all over him. This is a fourth-string wide receiver who couldn't catch a pass all week, scoring a touchdown early in the fourth quarter, then made an impossible grab to keep the Giants' drive alive. It is, in my opinion, the greatest play that ever happened in any Super Bowl. And the Giants caught a break when Asante Samuel dropped a pick and Steve Smith, no, not that one, converted a 3rd and 11 in one of the greatest forgotten plays of all time. Then the Giants went for the win and got it. Plaxico Burress shooting the Patriots instead of himself, scoring the game-winning TD, and the Giants defense polishes this one off. Wait. We were talking about forgotten plays, right? Well, what about this pass to Randy Moss that very well could have sent the game into overtime? Randy Moss made a career out of mossing players, and he didn't even go up for this ball?
He had a couple steps, and he still had some left. I mean, he could have gone after that ball if it was able to get out further in front of him.
Ooh, people forget about that. The Giants took one kneel down. Bill Belichick scurried off the field in shame, presumably to mastermind new ways to cheat, and the glorious 2007 season reached its conclusion. The New York Football Giants, who started 0-2, finished as Super Bowl champions, knocking off the 18-0 Patriots in one of the greatest David and Goliath moments in sports history. It was an incredible season that deserved an incredible ending, and oh boy did we get it. Thanks for watching the 2007 season tribute here on That's Good Sports. If you liked the video, subscribe and click the video on the screen to watch some more. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, at Brandon Perna if you want to follow my stupid football thoughts all the time.